Hi, I'm Dan Handelman. Welcome to part 2 of the 19th Busiversary, Flying Focus Video Collective's annual look back at our weekly series here at Portland Community Media.
We're just ordinary people interested in peace and justice issues using video as a tool for social change, voicing the voiceless. Our show, The Video Bus, features lectures, forums, protests, and other information you can use. Sure, anyone can make a video and post it on the internet, but with community media, you can make your own TV.
So grab a pen and some paper to write down our contact information, which you can see on the screen right now. It'll come up a few more times during the show.
Sit back and relax again as producers introduce clips from their shows they produced between November 2009 and October 2010. Let's take a look.
So in this first clip, I want to show David Korten, who's an author and the co-editor of Yes Magazine, talking about creating a new economy. He spoke at the Econvergence in October of 2009, and I really like the way that he talks about the Wall Street as a casino, and talks about how they create money out of thin air that really doesn't exist. So I think this is, he kind of breaks down big economic problems into small, easy to understand chunks. Let's take a look.
A growing body of evidence compiled by public health researchers suggests that societies that share their wealth and their work equitably among all members enjoy greater physical and emotional health, stronger families and communities, less violence, and healthier natural systems. These societies are as well more democratic and more resilient in the face of crisis. This is not a coincidence. It is in fact a direct result of the psychological and emotional stress and insecurity created even for those at the top by an outsized wealth gap. Money, particularly money that is created out of nothing without any contribution to the creation of anything of corresponding value, is phantom wealth. It has no substance or intrinsic utility. Creating phantom money is a Wall Street specialty. They call it financial innovation. So what is real wealth? Well, we might say it is anything that has real intrinsic value. Land, labor, knowledge, food, education. Convert to a peace economy. People and planet can no longer afford war. And here's a key. We in the United States, our military budget is roughly equal to the sum total of military budgets of all the rest of the world. And yet we face no conventional military threat. We face no conventional military threat. And students of military science have long known that the use of conventional military force against armed threats from terrorists who blend in with civilian populations is largely counterproductive. That is the threat against which we use military force, and it is counterproductive, as we see in Iraq and Afghanistan, as we learn over and over. The national and global interest is best served by dismantling our military establishment, dismantling the military establishments of all the world, and reallocating resources to meet real needs.
Another topic I really like to focus on here on the video bus is U.S. policy in the Middle East. And another talk at the Econvergence last year was given by members of the Rachel Corrie Foundation, including Rachel Corrie's mother, Cindy Corrie, a professor from Evergreen State College, and a student who went on a trip to Gaza shortly after the Israeli bombardment there first they went in January of 2009, but they just had come back from a trip in September of 2009, and they tell the audience in not very graphic terms, but in very descriptive terms, what they found there.
It gave us just a taste of what it's like for Palestinians to experience that border. It was, I have messages really from many different organizations in Gaza that we met with who talked about the borders, and almost invariably they talked about how inhumane it was. And I think that that's what all of us can attest as well. Just it's kind of hard to put yourself in that position, but you're there in the heat, desert heat of the day, no shade. In parts of the borders where we were waiting, no bathroom facilities. It's a very difficult circumstance, and I think we have new appreciation for what people need to do when they move in and out. 10,000 people have come to visit Gaza in delegations since the end of the 22-day assault. What is the impact? A big zero. It is nothing. It is on TV and media only. And having been there in March and then returned in September, about 6 months later, I say that for Craig and me, the most shocking thing was that really nothing had changed. There was some evidence of some rubble being cleared, but there's no rebuilding. Most of the damaged buildings and the rubble on the ground, most of that remains.
Somebody that we met with, I think it was Basil also, who said that, we don't call this a war, what happened in December and January, the 22 days of intense assault, because wars end. There's a beginning and an end to them. This is not a war because it hasn't ended. The situation still continues to get worse. The siege has not been lifted. There have been $9 million of aid pledged to rebuild Gaza. Not one penny of it has gotten there.
I've actually founded called it a man-made hell by Israel and the United States. Gaza is that I quoted in a couple of meetings Gramsci, a couple of times, Antonio Gramsci, optimism of the will and pessimism of the intellect. Intellectually speaking and studying the issue, things are getting worse and worse. In fact, one of the human rights people we talked to said that we've gone from bad to worse to the unknown. And so they don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. But it does not look good, at least intellectually, but there's a lot of will for people to make things better.
Hi, so I'm here with Yvonne Simmons, who's been with Flying Focus since way back at the beginning. And I worked with Yvonne editing a show about her most recent trip to Peru. You want to talk about that a little?
Oh, the
clips?
Well, one was the International Women's Day March in the middle of Lima. There was a 2-hour march through the main streets of Lima, and it was incredible. It was an incredible looking at everybody. People came from all over Peru to be there, from all different parts of the country. And the signs and the drumming and the chanting was incredible. I hope you enjoy it.
What's on the other show that you did about Peru this year?
Well, I went back to the earthquake zone, and the bricks that were taken there the first time I went, which was like 3 years ago, are still stacked up. The houses they're living in aren't just matching. They're living in better quarters than they were when I went after the earthquake. But the houses haven't been, an NGO brought them there and just left them, and there's nobody to build the houses.
And then you did some work with the kids?
Oh, yeah. And here are the children making paper mache masks. This is the first afternoon at Barranquito. They're making a lot of mess too, but it's fun. Some of the children did finish their masks and did a really good job of it. Also, some of the kids threw them at each other, which is typical. And now we have the cleaner-uppers, which was really fun.
We were just hearing from Yvonne Simmons from Peru, her visions of what was going on there. Now we're going to talk with Barb Greene about the Congo. Dying for Your Convenience. Was that the name of it?
That's the name of the program that this next clip is from.
Mm-hmm.
This program included 4 people from the Congo, describing the atrocities that have been committed against people over there. And but this particular clip is from the Econvergence with Casey Bush talking about how the minerals are mined and the effects on the environment, which is all happening so that we can have our computers and new cell phones every year and all these conveniences.
Tantalum exists in alluvial areas that are from ancient mountains that have been basically eroded down, and it's not too far below the ground. A lot of the mining that you see in the pictures on YouTube is like they're going into little anthills. Sometimes it might be 100 feet down, but a lot of times it's only 20 feet down. Sometimes they just take water and destroy the hillside and get right to it that way. The problem is, one of the ecological problems is that it exists in national parks in the Congo.
That's right.
And so the groups that are up there doing the mining, even though they don't get paid, they do have to get fed, and they're often fed with bush meat, and the use of that word. They're bush. And that means gorillas sometimes and other exotic species.
To be blunt, it's hillsides destroyed, rivers turned to mud, animals of all kinds slaughtered. In some parts of this national park, whose name I forget unfortunately, you can't find an antelope or a chimpanzee. The lowland gorillas, which are the most endangered species of gorilla, are being slaughtered and heading for extinction. No one can find a forest elephant in the area. The hippopotamus herds have gone from thousands down to a few hundreds. And that's not counting all the smaller animals, all the trees being chopped down for firewood and for building materials. And this isn't just mining camps that are doing this. A lot of it is displaced people who, like I said before, they just want food and shelter. And that's why even if your primary concern is the environment, even if you're a total misanthrope, which I have to admit to a little bit of that tendency myself, if you care about the environment, if you care about the other non-human species we share our planet with, you have to care about human rights, because people who are in a bad way aren't thinking about the environment. They're running in survival mode, and survival mode is I will do what it takes to get food. I will do what it takes to be warm. And you're not thinking about if this is the last couple gorillas. You're thinking, hey, that animal's made out of meat, and I like meat when I'm hungry.
It's an African war, and the Congo just happens to be the site of it. So over the last 10 years, you have armies from Angola, Zimbabwe, Sudan, all the neighboring countries, some countries that don't even have a border with Congo, sending troops there for some premise, but actually helping extract minerals besides coltan, the usual copper, gold, cobalt, etc.
Barb Greene is going to talk about her editing of Just Say No to Psychiatric Drugs. That's the name of it. What did you find out?
Well, this is a program about a journalist who specializes in scientific and medical matters. and his name is Robert Whitaker.
That's right.
And he's talking here about the effects that psychiatric drugs have had, and after watching this, you might not want to take them.
If you look at spending on psychiatric medications in 1987, see if I can remember this correctly, I think it was about $800 million. In 2007, it's over $40 billion. So there's an extraordinary increase in spending on psychiatric medications. Now, the disability numbers during that time have risen to more than 4 million, so they've more than tripled. We now have a disability rate at around 1, I think it's in 1 in 80, 1 in 70 with those numbers. Okay, so now you can see a bit of the puzzle here. As this revolution has unfolded, rather than seeing either a stability in the disability rate, we're actually seeing this, or even a decrease, which is usually what happens when you get very effective drugs. We're getting this rise. And it seems odd, right? And it seems like what's going on? It raises a question. By the way, here's the scope of this epidemic today. Oh, one other thing. In 1987, there were 16,200 children whose families received SSI because they had a serious mental illness. We now have more than 600,000 children who receive an SSI payment because of a serious mental illness. So it's increased 35-fold in the last 20 years. I came upon studies by the World Health Organization that twice found that people in poor countries of the world, specifically India, Nigeria, and Colombia, diagnosed with schizophrenia, had much, much better outcomes than in the US and other rich countries. It was so strong, the difference was so pronounced, that the researchers concluded that living in a developed country was, quote, a strong predictor that a person would never fully recover from schizophrenia. And you see away from the headlines some real concern. I mean, at one point, Jones and Chenard present their data, and this psychiatrist stands up at a meeting, he's saying, are you telling me that the drug I give patients for psychosis is making people psychotic? And you can hear this gasp. There was also a presentation at the World Psychiatric Association meeting where a very famous guy says, taking an antipsychotic is like having a psychosis-inducing agent built into the brain. So there's this horrible moment, at least with some people. Now this, we do have to say that we have this different aggregate of outcomes. But all I'm telling you is, within the system, within psychiatric research circles, this concern arose. Now this concern basically now is pushed out of mind very quickly. It's just too hard to even think about. It would cause a rethinking of it. This is the same time, by the way, that NAMI arrives on the scene, really pushing this idea that these drugs are like insulin for diabetes, and this sort of whole line of thinking disappears. And it becomes, you're just not allowed to say it.
Fat Vegan No More. What did that refer to? I taped it, but you edited it.
Yeah. So this program is Dr. John McDougall, who's a physician and nutrition expert, talking about the benefits of a plant-based diet, but done in such a way that you're eating healthy food, because cola drinks and chips are plant-based, but they're not healthy. And this is how to eat actually a healthy based diet. And here he's talking about his experiences in Hawaii and looking at the differences between older folks' eating habits and health and younger folks. It's very interesting.
Most of my practice was taking care of people with chronic ailments, chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes and hypertension, osteoporosis, cancer. These are the kind of patients that I took care of, and no matter how hard I tried, no matter how many pills I administered, they didn't get any better. They stayed sick. And I took responsibility, I really did. I thought I was a terrible doctor. The second thing I learned about was the importance of a good diet, and I learned it from my patients. I was taking care of first, second, third, fourth generation Filipinos, Chinese, Koreans, Japanese people. And these are people who ate differently. And the reason they ate differently is the first generation, they learned their diet in Japan, or the Philippines, or China. And it was a diet of rice and vegetables, no dairy, very little meat. And then they moved from their natal land to the big island of Hawaii to work on the sugar plantation, and they kept their same diet. Now, their children were influenced by Texas drive-in, and actually when we were there the first year, Hilo, Hawaii introduced the first McDonald's, and we had to drive down there and get a double cheeseburger. I did. But they started to be influenced by the American culture, the second generation, and they got a little fatter, a little sicker. In the third generation, they got a lot fatter and a lot sicker. So here I'm taking care of these generations of people, and I was taught that disease is genetic, it's inherited. Yet what I saw right in front of my eyes is the genes didn't change in 3 generations, but the physical appearance and the health of these people changed drastically. And the only thing that really changed was their diet. As a matter of fact, the healthiest people that I was taking care of ate the worst diet. They skipped 2 of the food groups. They were living basically on rice and vegetables. And they didn't consume dairy, they didn't consume much of any animal flesh, and yet they were the healthiest people. And when the generations passed and the diet improved and became more well-balanced, more filled with protein and calcium and all those good nutrients, right before my eyes, they got fatter and sicker.
We were talking about humans, and now we're going to animals, and wondering how we're going to help with them.
Well, this program called Wins for Farm Animals is my favorite from all the ones we worked on this year. I've worked on animal rights issues for several decades. I won't say how many.
Okay.
And this is Paul Shapiro from the Humane Society of the United States. So finally, there's a really big organization. He's the director of the Factory Farming Campaign, and he's talking about how things are starting to go well for animals, which is really great.
So they get a chance to win for a change.
Yeah, and it's been a long time coming.
That's great. Let's take a look.
All right.
So within 3 months of the Arizona vote banning gestation crates and veal crates, Smithfield Foods, the largest pig producer not only in the US but in the world, even though it has 0 gestation crates in all of Arizona, it saw the writing on the wall, and it said it was going to phase out its confinement of breeding pigs in gestation crates. 1 week later, Canada's top pig producer, Maple Leaf Farms, said that it would get rid of gestation crates. Not to be outdone, Cargill came out and said, you know what, more than 50% of our sows are already out of gestation crates. The pork industry is essentially throwing in the towel on this issue in the United States, and really not putting up much of a fight when it comes to getting rid of the gestation crate. And I'll tell you, within 10 years in this country, there will not be gestation crates anymore. It's not only in the pork industry that we're seeing change. Just like I mentioned earlier, within a month after the Arizona election, despite the fact that, you know what, there were 0 veal crates in the entire state, but Arizonans banned it as a preventive measure, and within a month, the 2 largest veal producers in the country said they're going to get rid of veal crates. Within 2 to 3 years, the Arizona ban had a phase out of 6 years with 0 crates in the entire state. And these guys said within 2 to 3 years, no more veal crates for the 2 top producers in our entire country, leading the American Veal Association, which is a major funder of our opposition in Arizona, spent lavishly against us in there, to pass a resolution a year ago this month, urging the entire veal industry in the country to stop using veal crates. Within 5 years, there will be no veal crates left in the United States. We're also seeing some types of reform coming from some corporations. These retailers are now telling their suppliers, saying, we don't want you using the most abusive factory farming techniques. Now, I don't expect Burger King or Safeway or Denny's to be going vegan overnight, but at least they're now telling their egg suppliers, hey, we want you moving away from battery cages. And we're seeing real change in this arena that I think is going, while the egg industry is certainly behind the pork and the veal industry, these industries really represent the 3 worst industries as far as animal cruelty is concerned in the agribusiness sector. And now all 3 of them are moving in this direction. For 60 years, we've seen agribusiness become more and more and more intensive, and we're finally in the US beginning to see the shift toward a de-intensification.
Okay, so that about wraps it up for the 19th Busiversary. I'm Barb Greene, and we thank you for joining us.
And I'm PC Peri from Flying Focus. And as you can see, we have a mixture of information and entertainment on our show. We also hope you learned a little more about what we do and why we do it by hearing from our members and producers tonight.
If you'd like to volunteer with us or support us in any way, please call 503-239-7456 or 503-321-5051, or you can email us at ffvc@flyingfocus.org.
Be sure to tune in or set your video recording device every week in the same time slot for the Flying Focus Video Bus.